If I could just ask everybody, just so that we can preserve the bandwidth for now, if we can do cameras off and on mute, that would be awesome. Thanks. We'll invite you to come back on with your cameras a bit later. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Before we get started, I wanted to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today. I want to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and offer a warm welcome to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander friends that we have with us here today. And a big warm welcome to our members, of course, our presenters for today and our special guests. You may not realise this, but you're actually part of this amazing cohort of 9,000 people from more than 55 countries who've attended our programs since last year. And today we took more than 200 registrations and 25% of those are buyers. We also have a strong cohort today from the investment community, so we thank them for their attention. And I just wanted to say a big warm welcome to absolutely everybody that's taken the time. We realise that right now there's a lot of events on and there's quite a bit of fatigue, so we do appreciate the time that you've taken, and we hope we're going to make it worthwhile for you. So thanks, Hong. I'll go to the next slide if that's okay. The work that we are doing right now is helping to shift perceptions and to elevate the voice of RegTech, but we are seeing definite signs of acceleration of adoption, which is fantastic. And one of the things that we've seen is this 23% reduction in what we call the time to value. And the time to value really means from the first conversation that somebody is having right through to the full deployment has actually reduced in the time that it's taking. And it went something from 14 months was an average in 2019 to only 8.4 months this year. So that is a tangible increase in how quickly we are deploying solutions. That, coupled with an increased customer appetite that we're seeing, and there's a lot more institutional budget being put towards RegTech solutions, and also that there is a definite shift towards buying rather than building. From the RegTech perspective, 2/3 of our RegTech founders have experienced significant growth since the pandemic began. And there's also tangible evidence right up until conversations I've been having this morning that people are adding jobs and they are looking at their footprint, certainly externally from Australia, looking at the US, UK and Asian markets. And I just wanted to also share, 4.5 years ago when we started the association, we weren't really sure what was going to happen. And I remember planning our very first Accelerate RegTech conference. And when I compare the experience of just this week, when we've been in planning mode again for next year's conference, within a very short period of time of reaching out to the Minister for Financial Services and to the Chief FinTech Officer of a major global regulator, we had confirmations that both of them would join our conference for next year. We've signed sponsors on of the calibre of Microsoft and Austrade as an example, and we've got some exciting new sponsors to announce in the coming weeks. And as evidence of even further traction, this is an open invitation if you're a RegTech on the line today, and not just RegTechs actually, but institutions as well. And if you're a member of the association, we invite you to nominate for our Global RegTech Awards. They close tomorrow evening Australian time at 11 p.m. We have a cracking lineup of judges who are going to assess every application that comes in and potentially choose you as a finalist or a winner. So I'd encourage you to do that. So today, with all of this fantastic stuff that's been going on, we're in a bit of a celebratory mood, and what better way to celebrate than to kick off our RegTechEdgeNoBorders program today. These programs were designed to showcase the opportunity that is RegTech and offer participants the opportunity to do a bit of window shopping and to ask questions of the RegTechs directly. And so today we're going to be focused on AML, CTF and sanctions screening. And this area of risk is in the top 3 risk areas that are addressed by RegTech, and we have a fantastic group who's going to present for you today. And I'll name them in order that they'll be presenting. So it's ApplyID, Comply Advantage, Feedside, Identity, Ingenius, Quantexa, and SAS. Before we get started, I just wanted to go through a little bit of housekeeping. Unless you are presenting, if I could just ask you for now to turn your camera and your sound off. This way we can just ensure that we're preserving the bandwidth for the presenters and their presentations. And we'll ask you to come back at the end for some networking, and you can switch on your cameras and the sound at that time. We'd love for you to put your questions in the chat, and we are encouraging our speakers to jump onto the chat directly after the preso is done, so they can answer any questions that you have directly. To all of our presenters, please stay on time. Our audience has signed up for 60 minutes, and we want to make sure that we give them every ounce of value. And so if you can stick to the time that you've been allocated, we really appreciate that. That means that the first presenter and the last presenter get exactly the same amount of time. So please be mindful of this. The other thing that you're going to see us doing is we're going to pop some polls up from time to time. Some of them won't relate necessarily to the topic today. It is just data that we are capturing to help us in the work that we do. Now, I'm now going to hand over to Dima. Dima is from EY, and Dima's job today is to introduce all of the RegTechs and to keep us all on time. Dima heads EY's financial crime and fraud technology practice in Oceania. And prior to joining EY, he led ANZ's fraud, financial crime and credit risk technology division. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Dima to kick us off, and then we'll get underway with the showcase, and I'll pop back right at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deb, and thanks for having EY moderate this event again. And I certainly I agree with the celebratory mood, and it's probably enhanced by the fact that kids are going back to school across New South Wales and Melbourne over the last couple of weeks. So certainly cause for celebration in our household. Look, just to really quickly set the scene before we hand over to ApplyID as our first presenter. Now, last year, EY moderated a very similar event with the RegTech Association, where we talked about the rising cost of compliance and the burden of compliance, particularly on smaller financial services organisations. And it's interesting to reflect how the conversation has slightly shifted in the last 12 months, where the AML, CTF and sanctions risks that we were talking about mitigating last year are really shifted more from your traditional transactional sort of transaction monitoring risk, more to know your customer and customer onboarding risk as well. And as the Westpac and CBA and HSBC sort of events and fines start to fade into history of recent years, we're now starting to see, know your customer processes and efficiency as really becoming that next battleground in regulatory compliance and financial crime. And of course, we've seen that recently with the release of the Pandora Papers, that saw 12 million documents released across 14 different firms who provide offshore services that are obviously designed to obfuscate the true source of wealth and the true source of ownership as well. And there was some really strong connections there, some really strong Australian connections there as well. And as you're looking at that information, as you're sort of digesting those news, you start to think what technology solutions can be applied to programmatically find risk in that information, to not just have thousands or hundreds of people trawl through that information, therefore adding to that cost burden, but to do so in an intelligent and automated way. And of course, we're seeing AUSTRAC, closer to home. AUSTRAC are now considering and have been debating for the last 5 years their tranche 2 legislation, which will see the AML CTF Act extend to what they call enabling professions, such as accountants, bookkeepers, real estate agents, and law firms. So where we're seeing today, Australia's major banks are contributing around $9 million per year each to Austrac's investigation and intelligence operations. You can start to see that cost burden will soon trickle down, probably in the next 5 years. It'll start to trickle down to much smaller organizations as the tranche 2 changes will be passed, which ultimately they will in one way, shape, or form. So that brings us to the point that technology is our only solution to continue to manage the cost of compliance in an efficient way. And some of the work that EY has done with clients in the last couple of years, particularly around know your customer processes, has really seen significant reductions of up to 90% in terms of average handling time and average cost per file in KYC processes and KYC operations. So to kick off the fantastic panel lineup for today, I'll throw over to ApplyID, who are a KYC, compliance, and biometrics solutions provider.
Thank you very much, Gma. Pronounced ApplyID. We'd like to thank the RegTech Association and EY for welcoming us today, coordinating today, and letting ApplyID speak. Next slide, please. So a little bit about ApplyID. We're a biometric and electronic ID verification provider. We've really been built and designed to quickly and securely onboard your customers. We were originally founded in 2018 in New Zealand by co-founders Claudia and Russell Smith, who really saw a gap in the market for a plug-and-play AML KYC solution, and then ApplyID was then born. We now operate across Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, and we have a team with over 100 years combined experience. Next slide, please. So the ApplyID process is really fast and easy to complete, not just for you, our customer, but also the individuals using our system that need to be verified. Using our frictionless forms, we send a text message to the mobile phone device of the individual that needs to be verified. We then capture their ID, and using optical character recognition, we then migrate that information from the ID document into the application form, really reducing human error and the number of keystrokes to get to a verification. The next step on that flow would be a biometrics, which is then used to match the individual's face to the ID document. That entire process is completed in under 90 seconds, and the results are then provided back to you instantly. By using ApplyID, we help businesses meet their AML and KYC requirements while reducing fraud at the same time and onboarding customers really quickly with the world-leading security behind our technology as well. Next slide, please. So using our leading facial recognition technology, we match the individual behind that application to the photo ID that they're providing you with, giving you a bit of peace of mind, especially when digitally onboarding, and COVID has sort of made human interaction with our customers a little bit harder and a little bit limited. And it adds that additional layer of fraud protection by alerting our customers when going through that application process if there's any document tampering on the ID documents that were supplied throughout that flow. On every verification that's completed using ApplyID, our artificial intelligent learning technology will also protect your organisation from possible fraudulent ID documents getting passed through or scams by using stolen ID documents, while also on every call verifying. While also screening global PEP and sanctions watch lists. Next slide, please. Our data security is of utmost importance to us at ApplyID. We regularly enhance our technology systems. We update our watch lists regularly, as well as our databases. With all global privacy and legislations for your peace of mind as well. And most importantly, we don't indefinitely store any of your information throughout that process. Next slide, please. Getting set up with ApplyID is really simple. There's no over-engineered rule sets to configure. Our out-of-the-box solution will be able to assist you reduce fraud and help meet your AML KYC requirements straight away. with the flexibility to use our solution as a standalone web portal or via our open API that can feed back to your CRM, a decisioning platform, or any system that can consume an open API. Our pricing is very flexible, and it's really built to give you a return on investment, not only on the money that you spend, but the time that you'd be saving to onboard your customers as well. Next slide, please. We'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us, have a look at our website, www.applyid.com, or reach out to me directly. We'd love to book in a demo and set you up with a free trial to really prove to you guys how ApplyID can really quickly, accurately onboard your customers in a fast, compliant process. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdullah. A great presentation and right on time as well, so bonus points for that. If you, just as a quick reminder, if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat, and we will get to them at the end of the presentation, at the end of the presentations. So with that, we will hand over to ComplyAdvantage. Here's our next presenter.
Hi everyone, great to be here with you today. I'm Ben, and I oversee the Australian New Zealand business for ComplyAdvantage. ComplyAdvantage has been made for compliance teams who are tired of inefficiencies across their AML data, manual processes for screening customers, and the manual steps which are taken to monitor transactions. We provide global AML data and provide flexible and fully automated screening monitoring solutions. This covers sanctions watch list, PEPs, and adverse media information, automated client rescreening, and real-time transaction monitoring. Next slide, please. With the advent of RegTech in the panel today, we can see the current system is broken. The main areas which we support and solve are the following problems. AML data sets are either not updated, they're missing information, or missing true matches. Most systems are from the early 2000s. They haven't been created for change and are completely inflexible, so the cost of change is far too high. This in turn becomes more costly as the weight of this additional work in maintaining these systems grows on our teams. And traditional service providers charge for every small change, and they don't really work in true partnership as it's expensive for them to also change for the clients and themselves. Next slide, please. The workflow shown is an example of onboarding a customer and the life cycle to monitor risk. Where we focus and support our clients with data and solutions is in the middle area within the circle. Firstly, all of the data and solutions we offer are easy to be customized on the user end, no coding is required, and we are hosted in Australia. On the left-hand side of the circle, all our global data sets are curated and developed near real time. We offer the fastest sanctions watch list, PEPs, and adverse media data, globally using machine learning and AI. And some examples include sanctions watch list updates within 15 minutes. And if you look at that in comparison to the market standard of 48 hours, that's 192 times faster than any other data provider out there. PEP updates happen within the day, and we cover up to 150 million new articles of adverse information across 1 month. That feeds into our automated clients monitoring solution, so every client officer really, they can be notified as of when a risk occurs. And on the right-hand side of the circle, you'll see our transaction risk management system. We have over 300 rules out of the box. Our clients are in control of customizing thresholds and the alerting as they really see fit. Rule changes can be made in seconds, and these cover all sorts of behaviors and currencies, including those of crypto, if you're entering that space. Next slide, please. We have over 1,000 clients, and these are some of the examples of the clients that we work with globally, and the partners that we work with as well closely are just at the bottom of the screen. So essentially, we'd love to work with you and get in touch. If we go to the next slide, you'll see my contact details. Please do contact us. Happy to share more details and talk through things more specific to your business. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ben. Great to see modern integration methods via RESTful APIs in your platform, and the performance is quite impressive too. So thank you very much. So we will continue on with Feedside, who are an AML customer onboarding and transaction fraud service and platform provider. Over to you, team.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Ryan, and I'm head of financial crime strategy for Feedside across Asia Pacific. I'm delighted to be here again, especially to share with you some news which everyone at Feedside is extremely excited about. More on that in a minute. So next slide, please. Some of you may know of Feedside already, but for those of you who are new here, we are a global company 100% specializing in risk solutions for fraud and financial crime. We were founded in 2011 by engineers working for the European Space Agency. We have 9 offices across 4 continents with a large team presence in APAC. Our offices include Sydney, and we have a local team on the ground for end-to-end engagements, including delivery and ongoing local support. We've been in the news recently through our Series D raise with KKR, which put us at a valuation way in excess of $1 billion US. So we're well funded and we are here to stay. Next slide, please. Now, most of you know of us for our best-in-class fraud solution. We've been protecting over 80% of the world's Fortune 500 companies. This includes 4 of the 5 largest banks in North America, multiple Tier 1 and challenger banks across EMEA and APAC, and also 2 of the world's most valuable athletic brands, where we protect over $9 billion of online transactions. Now, Feedside's focus is on managing financial risk across the full customer lifecycle, as seen by our recent acquisition of Revelock and our world-leading behavioral biometric product. Now, while that news on its own is quite exciting, that's not my primary announcement today, nor is it about what our CEO announced at Money 2020 in Vegas this week about our Risk Ops platform. What I'm going to share with you now is a sneak peek about something we believe will be a game changer to help improve managing financial crime risk. This will be formally launched in a matter of weeks. However, as I tell my friends in the Northern Hemisphere, Australia is in the future. So here is a world's first glimpse of a tangible product, not some fluffy white bunny created by a marketing department. No offense meant to any marketing personnel people out here today. Next slide, please. What I'm sharing with you now is a glimpse of our new AML suite, which is also fully integrated with our fraud offering on one cloud deployment. We launched our AML product 3 years ago as part of our FAML offering, a single platform to manage fraud and AML transaction monitoring. Recently, we expanded this offering to include our watchlist management transaction screening product. Now, in a matter of weeks, we'll be formally launching our new KYC, CDD, and customer screening products. Now, some of you may be saying, so what? So please bear with me. And final slide. Next, please. Now, what you see here is a truly integrated solution to manage your financial crime risks, all on one platform across the full customer lifecycle. That's one case manager, one risk engine, one single view of fraud and financial crime risk. So what's the game changer? Because all of this is built on our world-leading real-time risk engine, all our products are real-time capable. Feedside's soon-to-be launched KYC CDD product will provide a 360-degree view of customer risk in real time. Yes, that's real-time dynamic customer risk scoring. Not only that, our KYC CDD product will ingest all the risk factors from our other fraud and AML products, again, in real time. So should your customers' demographics change a day after their annual periodic review, or there was suspicious activity detected from one of our other products, we will generate a trigger-based review for your team to act on. All of this is fully configurable based on your risk appetite for that customer segment. Now, this offering will now allow you to understand granular risks unique to each customer in real time. This truly is a game changer for the industry. Now, if you're one of the many companies who have significant technical debt with legacy solutions, don't worry. Our platform will also allow you to run a hybrid model to avail of this capability while you sunset your old technology. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for your attention. For any more information, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Tom directly. Tom's our regional director for Australia and New Zealand. We'd love to meet you in person, and now I can jump on a plane. I'll even go wider, further afield. So I'll see you soon for a coffee, hopefully sometime. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Great to see such an integrated solution. I can see how that would be very attractive for a number of organizations. So our next presenter is Ingenius, who are an integrated provider of fraud prevention and compliance services. So John, over to you.
It's actually identity. I think it's identity next. Is that right? Sorry,
That sounds
Dima.
about right.
It is identity.
That's okay.
Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, Dima. Thank
Sorry.
you very much. That's okay. No problem at all. My name is John Raymond. I'm the CEO of Identity. Next slide, please. And like just about every business in the RegTech industry, we're helping the global financial services industry solve the problem that most of the transactions conducted with customers today are still provisioned for on technology that's not new and in some cases quite old. And I think this quote from Bank of England that we found recently neatly captures that. Next slide, please. We are an early stage business solving a very bespoke problem or a very narrow problem in the wider AML CTF space. And the problem that we're solving is that for regulated entities all around the world, reporting accurate and complete transaction reports to the regulator is still a highly manual process. Often includes insecure methods of communication such as phone, email, and shared drives and spreadsheets, etc. And we exist to create one single view of all of the transactions that an institution is doing with its customer. And once all of those transactions are in one place and in one format, it's then very easy to make intelligent decisions about complete and accurate reporting to the regulator. And on the right-hand side, there are some of the brands that have trusted us to ingest their payment data. Next slide, please. I'd probably gloss over this one fairly quickly, but Dima, you mentioned earlier at the top of the call some of the trouble that some of the institutions in Australia have run into for falling foul of meeting their regulatory reporting obligations. We're really trying to ease this pain for the industry, both here in Australia and around the region and around the world. Next slide, please. And this is a snapshot of what our platform does, and I will work from left to right. And as I said, our platform works with aging technology in the financial services world and allows the submission of complete and accurate reporting to regulators, importantly, without having to replace legacy technology. And we have a cloud-hosted platform. It is ISO 27001 information security certified, and it really does 5 simple functions. From left to right, the first thing it does is it ingests payment data from a range of different technology systems inside an institution in a range of different file formats, languages, and types. And once that data is ingested into our platform, then we start to transform all of that data into a single view of transactions with customers, changing the language and the format of the transaction information, usually to the local regulator's reporting format. In Australia, that, of course, is the AUSTRAC reporting format. In New Zealand, the reporting format to the FIU, and to FinTrack in Canada as 3 examples of countries that we're working with at the moment. Once that information is uploaded into our platform and once it's transformed into one singular view and one single format, it's then very easy to spot missing information or incorrect information. And our platform automatically retrieves missing and incomplete information from a range of different source systems. And in the unlikely event, or in the likely event that there are things that need to be handled by manual exception, then pushes them to a much smaller manual exception queue. So once the information's in one place, once it's in one format, and once it's complete and accurate, we then run all of those transactions against a rules engine we've turned the local regulatory rules into business logic. And the platform makes a decision as to whether or not those transactions need to go to the regulator and creates an audit trail of whether or not the platform has decided to send those reports to the regulator. And the last thing it does is automate the sending and submission of those reports to the regulator on behalf of the entity, and leaves behind an audit trail of everything that's happened to every single transaction that's generated inside the institution. Next slide, please. And this is probably the last slide from us. This is some of the reasons why we're optimistic about our go-to-market strategy. This is how we will make an impact on the regulatory landscape. We're on a mission to build a business that's full of payments industry experts, so that we have people inside our business that understand firsthand the problem that we're trying to solve and the buying cycles of our customers. We have a direct focus on solving problems for some of the world's largest banks and the region's largest banks. And we also have a software as a service, or a SaaS proposition, a much lighter touch, much faster integration type problem that can help both tranche 1 and tranche 2 customers here in Australia and around the world when they need to submit complete and accurate reporting to their regulators. We spend time and money, we spend time and energy growing out our partnership base with companies like Deloitte, PwC, and Ashurst Risk Advisory, just to name a few. And, you know, as evidenced today, we're highly supportive and highly active with regulatory bodies that support the industry, like the RegTech Association, ACAMS, and so on. And in the absence of everything else, we're also very, very active in competing within the industry and within fintech and regtech competitions to further validate our technology. Last slide, please. Okay, that's it from me, Dima. Thanks very much for having us, to you and to Deb and to the RegTech Association.
Thank you, John. Much appreciated. And I can certainly echo your comments about the legacy technology that drives regulatory reporting processes. Fantastic to see you guys are working hard to solve that problem. So now over to the team at Ingenius for their presentation.
Hello, my name is Clint Mills, and here at Ingenius, we believe in always delivering to our clients what we say we will. Next slide, please. Organisations are facing many challenges these days, and the ones shown here are just a few. The digital channel has taken centre stage of the communication we have with our service providers and the services delivered by those organisations. Customers are driving that conversation and expecting services anywhere, anytime, and with no delay in decision making. Opening a bank account from your lounge room, getting in-store instant finance instead of going to a branch, and online purchases have already become the norm. Whilst these changes create many opportunities for service providers, they also create a number of risks, especially cyber threats and the increasing challenges of fulfilling obligations such as responsible lending, knowing your customers, and identifying and reporting financial crimes. With the growing volume of online transactions, the increasing number of fraud scams, and the human cost of identifying, investigating, and preventing AML, one of the key ways to address these challenges is with robust technology. Next slide, please. Ingenius was established in 2018 and brings together more than 25 years global experience in lending and managing fraud risk and financial compliance. Our mission at Ingenius is to help our clients overcome the hurdles and provide access to the latest and most advanced technology in financial crime prevention, regardless of their size and regardless of their readiness of the digital era we are already in. Not forgetting, of course, we also need to take care of non-digital criminal activity too. This experience and technology has been brought together in a platform called Intuition. Next slide, please. Intuition delivers end-to-end customer onboarding and financial crime prevention, complemented by partner solutions that deliver value adds in the areas of identity and biometric verification, global watchlist screening, and cybersecurity. From digital onboarding and credit decisioning through to KYC and application fraud prevention, Intuition helps to ensure you're onboarding the right customers in real time. Once those customers start transacting, Intuition for monitoring provides a single and 360-degree customer view, giving our clients the best possible chance of detecting and preventing financial crimes. Next slide, please. Ingenius is based in Melbourne, which is the heart of our R&D and software development, and we have employees in 10 countries globally. Our clients include banks, non-bank lenders, money exchange companies, superannuation funds, and insurers. We offer both on-premise solutions and cloud-hosted SaaS solutions. Next slide, please. Ingenius strongly supports industry initiatives such as those that the RegTech Association provides. And we believe that global collaboration rather than acting in isolation is the best way to attack and prevent financial crimes, as technology is obviously only one part of the solution. Next slide, please. So thank you very much to RegTech, also Austrade and EY for giving me the opportunity to introduce Ingenius. And please feel free to contact our Head of Customer Success, Compton Harry, whose details are on this slide for any further information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Clinton. Great to see a company that prides itself on delivering to its promises. And our next presenter is Quantexa, who specialise in aggregating complex data across complex organisations and building visual networks for risk detection and prevention purposes. So, Sean, over to you and the team.
Thanks very much, Dima, and thanks very much to the RegTech Association for inviting us to come along today. So over the last 5 years, Quantexa has grown from 6 people with an idea into a global company of 400 people valued at over $1 billion Australian dollars. So our software is revolutionising the detection and investigation of financial crime and KYC, and is now relied on by more than 20 of the world's leading banks, including 3 of the big 4 banks down here in Australia. Now, we built Quantexa because we knew that by using the latest open source technology foundations, and by taking a new approach to data, we could solve one of the biggest challenges financial institutions have today, trying to truly understand their customers and their associated behaviours. Next slide, please. So traditionally, financial crime systems have taken a very narrow view of data, and they've generated huge volumes of false positive alerts and have created the enormous operational burden of swivel chair investigations. Crucially, they have not been capable of identifying the most complex and damaging patterns of behaviour. Next slide, please. So legacy financial crime systems generate lots of granular, inaccurate alerts, and then investigators pick up those alerts and look at other data to manually try to develop some context to make sense of what they're seeing. At Quantexa, we bring all of that contextual information together at the beginning of the process, and then we manage that whole picture for risk, including internal and external data and networks of relationships. Our alerts represent entire situations, often spanning numerous parties and developing over time. We achieve this by using state-of-the-art entity resolution to give us a single view of the customer and the counterparty, and network generation to understand the huge volumes of relationships hidden in the data. Next slide, please. So I'm now going to show you a real-world example of why contextual monitoring is so important. On the screen, we can see a transaction. A business in Australia sends 1.5 million Australian dollars via wire to another business in Singapore. Now, this transaction might be picked up by a traditional transaction monitoring system with a scenario like a value spike. This transaction is larger than the transactions that are typical for the business in Australia. Now, an investigator might look at this and say, well, it looks like a legitimate business in Australia, looks like a pretty normal business in Singapore. Yes, it's a big transaction, but I don't see anything else interesting. So I'm going to close this as a false positive. And in this situation, the missing ingredient is context. Next slide, please. If this same alert was generated by Quantexa, it would look a lot different. So what we actually see in Quantexa's version of the alert is an entire situation. 2 days prior to that $1.5 million transaction to Singapore, a business in Shanghai sent 1.4 million Aussie dollars to that business in Australia. So we have $1.4 million in, then 2 days later, $1.5 million out, going from Shanghai into Australia and then into Singapore. What we can also see from Quantexa's contextual monitoring approach is that it's been identified that the business in Australia is actually wholly owned by a business in Luxembourg, the parent. And that business in Luxembourg has a director, Director X. And interestingly, that director is also a controlling party in the businesses in both Shanghai and Singapore. So what we have here is a single individual who is actually based in Russia, who has a controlling interest in all of these businesses and is orchestrating this entire transactional flow with money, significant amounts of money flowing from China through Australia and into Singapore. And this view, of course, completely changes the risk profile of that original $1.5 million transaction that we looked at. Next slide, please. So what sorts of real-world results are Quantexa's customers experiencing by using this contextual approach to monitoring for financial crime, fraud, and KYC? Customers who have used this approach to either replace or complement their legacy transaction monitoring and fraud technology have experienced a 75% reduction in false positive alerts. So a huge efficiency gain, but interestingly, they've also found many more risky behaviors. So they're finding more risk with a smaller population of alerts. Our customers on average are finding that it's taking them 80% less time to investigate alerts by using this contextual approach to data. And we're able to bring data together from silos across the organization with 99% accuracy. In one of our largest deployments, we've scaled the system to over 100 billion records in a single implementation. Next slide, please. So if you would like to see a real world example of Quantexa being used to identify and then investigate real financial crime risk, please get in touch using the email address on this slide, and we would be delighted to show you one of our very exciting demonstrations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean, and great to see how that additional context can yield so much more information about a transaction or an individual. So now to our last presenter, who is SAS, who probably needs no introduction. SAS are a global integrated provider of analytics and risk decisioning services. And over to you, team.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dima, for the introduction. Next slide, please. Let me start with the market overview. We have seen dramatic increase of operational costs related to AML in terms of headcounts and maintenance due to digital transformation, emerging typologies, and regulatory pressures. Financial institutions are paying a close attention to their AML TCO and are looking for a solution that aims to contain costs. The regulatory pressure around financial instruments is an excellent opportunity to enlarge the detection scope for financial institutions. With the spate of new regulations in 2021, plus the rapid increase in money laundering volume, doing nothing is not a successful option anymore. Next slide, please. So many of our customers have begun their journey in adapting to AI and machine learning in phased manner, and it's more of a gradual process. As you can see, there are 3 levels that use varying level of analytics and technology with different use cases. Each of them requires varying level of explainability. Before I get there, one of the biggest prerequisites to begin the journey is to ensure the quality of the data. So data quality is critical, and that truly determines the readiness of an institution. Creating a single view of customer using entity resolution algorithms is critical to set the stage to begin the journey. And as we begin the journey in level 1, we still rely on rule-based detection, but we'll add enhanced features or enriched data like segmentation or peer profiles and use that to detect behavior deviations or anomalies. In level 2, we move towards automating some of the manual processes such as alert review and auto-promoting the obviously high scoring alerts to case by using supervised machine learning algorithm like a decision tree or logistic regression. In level 3, now this is where things start to get a little more interesting. We are crossing the chasm to actually generate work items using a complex machine learning model. This is where deep learning methods like a neural network model or a gradient boosting model or NLP may be used. These methods have shown to improve detection rates 3 times or higher. Next slide, please. So let me explain some of the benefits by using sample results from our customer interactions. In terms of how this is laid out, note that in level 1, we were merely improving existing Boolean monitoring strategies. We have noticed our customer gets a 3 to 5 times improvement in SMR conversion using segmentation and setting targeted thresholds for their segments. This is typically done through a clustering algorithm like k-means, for example. In level 2, by implementing straight-through processing for auto triage using decision trees reduces analyst fatigue and has also helped our customers cut down their false positive by 50%. Level 3 definitely gets you the most lift, 50% reduction in alert volumes, and identifying hidden patterns and behaviors resulting in higher quality SMRs has been takeaways from one of our customers who deployed a neural net AML model. Next slide, please. So SAS is the only vendor that is a leader across compliance, data management, and data science. With SAS advanced AI and analytics-based technology, we help financial institutions in enhancing financial crime programs' overall efficiency and effectiveness by using advanced data management and powerful in-memory capabilities. SAS solution provides a common technology foundation and let you quickly deploy robust analytics and AI for quicker time to value. Multiple deployment options minimize your capital investments, simplify IT operations, and get you up and running fast. And last but not the least, cloud deployments bring elasticity of compute and data environments that support growth in transaction volumes and complexity of model validation. Next slide, please. So we have been active participants in RegTech sessions, and hopefully we have provided you some good insights, and I hope to be speaking with you more often. Feel free to reach out to me and connect with me on LinkedIn if you need any assistance in addressing challenges related to your financial crime program or need any help with your financial crime transformation journey. Thanks a lot for your time today, and over to you, Dima.
Thank you, Saheb. Great presentation, grand overview, appreciate it. So that wraps up our formal presentation part of the agenda. We have a couple of questions that were answered in the chat, and whilst the audience is thinking of more questions, Deb, shall we throw a couple out to our presenters? Absolutely, why not? I'll let you go first. Thank you. So, John from Identity, your service and your offering is quite interesting, particularly from a large financial institution perspective with a lot of legacy systems. Data lineage as it relates to regulatory reporting, does your solution offer an ability to trace the lineage of the data elements that feed AUSTRAC and similar reports, or do you offer services to conduct that data lineage?
That's a good question. Our platform is only like all of the RegTech businesses here today. Our platform is only as good as the source information. I think I'm not entirely sure, if I'm honest, whether we're looking at lineage more that we're helping a single view of all of that. We're helping create a single view of all of that information as it exists at a point in time. Does it make sense? Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, lineage in a large organization is a complex topic, but having that snapshot is useful as well. We create forward lineage, I guess, because what happens once the data is ingested into our platform is invariably a lot of it needs to be manipulated, either automatically or, as I said earlier on, in a reduced amount of instances by manual exception. And what our platform does is creates an audit trail of everything that's happened to a transaction. So it creates lineage of a transaction, or it creates an audit trail, an auditable view of everything that's happened as that transaction has been manipulated as it moves through that reporting chain. Excellent. That's very useful. Thank you. Deb, do we have time for one more question?
I think one more, and then we might break off for some. I just have one or two things that I'd like to cover, and then we'll break off to some online networking.
Thank you. There was an interesting question from Ed Ball in the chat for the Quantexa team around ability to integrate international and third-party sources. And Sean, I think you've started answering, but I think you might have cut your answer a little bit short. So maybe better to elaborate live.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks, Tim, and thanks for the question, Ed. So look, from a Quantexa perspective, we have an open data model, so we can ingest data from any source, and from one project to the next, the recipe of data will be different. Some of the sources that we find we use quite often are global company registry sources, so things like Dun & Bradstreet and Bureau van Dijk. We also often integrate open source data into the system, so the Panama Papers, Paradise Papers, the Bahamas leaks, etc. And many of our deployments also include watchlist products, including adverse media and watch lists like Dow Jones and WorldCheck and these sorts of things. But like I said, the recipe is different from one project to the next.
Brilliant. Thank you. Ed, hopefully that answers your question. So Deb, back to you to finish up.
Thanks very much, Dima, and I want to acknowledge you as well. Thank you very much for your contribution today. Regrettably, we never have enough time on these platforms, but I wanted to allow enough time in the session if we wanted to come on and do a little bit of online networking, which is quite good. I mean, one of the things that I talk about a lot when I'm talking to people about RegTech and what it brings, we talk about productivity and efficiency and trust. But I think some of what I heard today was a little bit more granular, and it's about that integration and that single view and about real time. So this is some of the, the flow on benefits of some of that big picture stuff, the benefits, it's really about getting some fantastic tools into the hands of people within institutions that are struggling with some of this stuff. So to get that single view in real time is actually very worthwhile. And I loved what Sean said about job creation, to think in 4 or 5 years they've gone from 6 to 400 employees, which just goes to show you that RegTech is definitely adding jobs and it's on the rise. And also, and despite the fact that we are, talking about financial crime today in financial services, there's so much more for RegTech to do, outside of financial services as well. So there's a lot that we've got to achieve. So I'll just ask Hong to move to the next slide. There's a couple of things I wanted to quickly mention on here. We've got our Conduct and Culture event coming up on the 18th of November. Then on the 30th of November, our fantastic glittering virtual program for our RegTech Awards. And also we are inviting you to come to our AGM on that day, where we'll be announcing our new board directors elect. So 30th of November, you'll be able to register for those things online. Government as a buyer of RegTech has got a lot of excitement, 7th of December. And I also wanted to just announce that Accelerate RegTech, which we will be formally launching on the 30th of November, but you can mark your diary for 5th, 6th and 7th of April. And finally, I also just wanted to say, I mentioned the awards earlier. If you're a RegTech on the line and you're a member of the association, please make sure you get your awards in by tomorrow night. And then finally, just thank you so much to ApplyID, Comply Advantage, Feedside, Identity, Ingenius, Quantexa and SAS. Thank you very much for your contribution, and also thanking Dima and the team from EY for the support they give us. It's absolutely fantastic. So despite the fact that I've asked you all to keep your cameras off and your mics off, now you can switch everything on, and just in this last 8 minutes that we have, come on and say hi.